Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, all, or whatever time zone you're in. Can someone verify that my audio and screen are working?
Good.
Yes, and yes.
Great, thank you. And we'll wait a few more minutes, maybe 5 after or something, to get more people to join here. I think we've got, only 3 of the voting members on the call so far.
I have to leave at 4 o'clock, I'm afraid.
Which is what, an hour from now in your time zone?
Sorry, yes, yeah.
Okay.
I was like, what are you doing here? It's 4 o'clock now.
Hello, folks. Can anyone hear me?
Yep, hi, Mike.
Yeah, but you sound very soft.
Okay. I'll wait maybe 1 more minute since it looks like the participants list is still fluctuating here as people are joining, so.
Morning, David. Sorry, I've been a little late.
That's okay. We're just, looks like several people are in the process of joining here. So as long as it's stable for about 30 seconds, I'll go ahead and start.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yay, finally.
That's better.
Right.
Okay. Let's go ahead and start now. So welcome all to the Technical Advisory Council meeting. As a reminder, just close down my windows for video and things. Okay. As a reminder, the Computational Computing Consortium is focused on supporting open source projects, securing data in use. Every member is welcome. And I need to grab the new slide from Stephen. Something like every project is welcome within our scope. I don't remember what the phrasing is, but there is a new slide that was just done yesterday, and I had to go and grab it. Since this is covered by the Linux Foundation's antitrust policy, if this is your first meeting, here's where you find it, linuxfoundation.org/antitrust-policy. And so with that as the intro, here is the proposed agenda for today. There was one change that Stefano asked me to add in about the Open Source Summit, and so I've stuck that in right in here at item number 4. And so I don't know if Seth is here. He's probably welcome to talk about this too, but otherwise Stefano will cover this one. Other than that, our main item today is the outreach white paper, item number 5, and we can spend as much or as little time on it as the outreach committee wants, and then everything after that is considered time permitting in the order there. Are there any other changes or requests for the agenda?
Is Brandon on?
I have not seen Brendan join yet.
Okay, I've done nothing on the TAC white paper, and as far as I'm aware, he hasn't either. Just
okay.
So you know.
So they can probably skip that, is what I'm hearing.
Probably, yeah.
Given that, you know, last time we said everybody, if you have time, you should focus on the outreach paper, not the TAC white paper. So that's fine.
I have received very few comments from the TAC on the outreach white paper. Kind of nothing since the last meeting, since last 2 Wednesdays ago. I haven't done a lot of work to incorporate the few comments that I got, so perhaps we can use this time for the TAC to discuss it more.
Okay,
yeah,
that's okay. We will make the time, so. All right, so if there's no other agenda changes, then we'll go with this particular order. Potentially, the TAC white paper might be a 0-minute item. So if we get 0 minutes on it, we'll see if we get there, so. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and take our roll call to see if we have quorum of voting members. Giuseppe sent email saying he was going to be joining late, and so he may be joining around the time John drops off. We'll see. Is there anybody here from Alibaba? I did not see. So speak up if you're representing Alibaba. So I see Grant is here.
Yep.
Is Jin Song or anybody representing Facebook here?
Yeah, Shankaran from Facebook.
Okay, Shankaran, okay. Let's make a note of that. Okay, so Shankaran is the alternate there. Brandon, I don't see here yet. Anybody else from Google on that's representing Brandon? Okay, I see Howard here.
Yep.
I see Simon here.
Yep.
I see I'm here. John is here. And Mike is here. Okay, whatever. Okay, so we certainly have quorum. At this point, I'd also like to invite anybody who this is their first session to introduce themselves. So let me just go down the list here to see if any, I think there's 2 names. So Kathleen Moriarty, would you like to introduce yourself? No, Kathleen, but go ahead.
Sure, I just had to come off of mute. I'm Kathleen Moriarty. I work for Dell Technologies, and I'm on as an observer. I've worked with Dave a bunch in the IETF. I'm a former IETF security area director, and so some of the work, some of the use cases that are picked up from there is what spiked my interest.
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. Yeah, so I work, among other places, in the remote attestation procedures working group in the IETF, and Kathleen is one of the co-chairs of that group. So I saw Mark Bauer.
Yes, good day, everyone. My name's Mark. I'm again here as an observer, looking at the potential for joining. I work for a company called Comforta, based in Germany and the US, focus around data and use security. We've also been quite involved in standards like ANSI X9 standards around data tokenization and so forth. So very excited to be here today. And there's a couple of familiar names actually on the call. So hello to those that have met me in the past.
Yeah, welcome. And then Xinjin.
Hello, everyone. I'm Xinjin Fan, head of cryptography at IOTAX, Silicon Valley startup focusing on the blockchain and the Internet of Trust things. Happy to be here to learn from everyone, and also would like to contribute for this community. Thank you.
Great, thanks for being here. All right, and so the purpose of the roll call and the voting stuff is there's a couple things, usually just the vote on approving the minutes. Sometimes we have other votes. And so the people whose names on here, if I actually call for a vote, these are the people I'm asking for a vote on. But other than the we're officially voting on, every feedback is welcome. So when we get into white paper stuff, certainly all the TAC representatives are expected to review it, whether your name is on this one or not. And of course, guests are welcome to make observations. So did I miss anybody that this was their very first meeting? I think that's all the names that I didn't recognize from previous meetings. So, okay. Then our first thing we're going to vote on is the approval of the TAC minutes from the May 28th telechat. So let me first ask, is there anybody among the voting members who needs more time to review these before voting? And hearing nothing, then let me ask, since minutes are something we do have to approve, a no vote means that you have a request for a change in it. And so I'm not going to do a roll call vote on this one. I'm going to ask, is there anybody that would vote no that they have a change to the minutes that's necessary before approving? Okay. And is there anyone on the voting members who would abstain, such as
Yes.
you're not here and haven't read it? So
I wasn't there.
Okay.
However, given that I did have someone else there who did attend, if you're short a vote to get them approved, I'm probably okay with it. But let's see if we have enough people.
We certainly have quorum without you, Mike.
Okay, that's good.
Because if we go back here, I count 7, and we only need 5 to count. And so,
Great.
So hearing it in 1 abstention and then basically 6 implied yeses, I'm going to consider that motion has passed. And so Stefano can record that and we will go on. All right, so let's quickly run down some of the action items here as reminders. And so some of our action items are tracked in GitHub. I'm only going to cover the ones here just as a reminder to people. I also put these in email, and I think 1 or 2 of these people may have responded to in email, so we'll see. So status of creating the matrix for chat program, Mike or Ava?
Ava, I think, sent that. Did you not, Ava?
I think I did send that. Dave, were
Yes.
you on that?
If it was sent, was it sent to the list? If
It was
so, I'll
not
mark
sent
it.
to the list.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I hadn't realized I hadn't gone to the list.
Okay.
So
I
yes,
did
I
compile.
have seen it.
Okay. My bad. I did compile that. I will send it to the list. Mike and Dave, how would you two like to proceed with discussing that? I also have a little bit of news on the Open Enclave side.
If you want, we can cover it on the AOB section of this if you have a short update. Or I can insert it at any particular point in the agenda, given that we're not going to have time for this. It's really how much time for the outreach. So after we get to the outreach, if you want us to stick it in, say right after outreach, I'm welcome to if you want to chat about it then, Ava.
Sounds great. I will send it out now to the lists in case folks want to multitask.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay. Mike, making sure that the budget spreadsheet includes Zoom account.
Yeah, so I spoke to Steve about this. Is Steve on the line? He is. So I'm not entirely happy about this process, and that's nothing to do with the TAC. We need a way to get things onto the budget list, which doesn't just end up being let Mike know about it or let whoever's in the outreach or whatever. We need a formal way of doing it. So this is something of which I'm aware, but I don't want this to be the way we do it, if that makes sense.
Yep. Well, you're the treasurer, so you can tell us what process you'd like.
Yeah,
so.
well, we're still trying to get decent accounts out of the Linux Foundation, so don't get me started. But we still, the plan is still that there will be a discretionary budget per subcommittee per quarter, for instance. And as long as it fits into that, that's great. So I would expect that to be the case for this one.
Okay. And although you're taking care of the budget of the governing board that shows, which committees have discretionary stuff, I'm hoping you can also keep track of the discretionary things under the TAC as being the TAC member. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
But again, your
I would prefer
input
not
or
to,
suggestions
partly
on
because
how you'd like
I'm
it
the
to work.
treasurer.
Yeah.
In some ways, it feels like the wrong thing to do it. Let's not
Um,
do this now. Let's take this offline
Okay. All right.
and
Fair
discuss
enough.
how to do that.
All right. Good point. All right. Next one, reminder. Let's see. Jin Song and Zhao Ning still need to send in their GitHub ID. Thank you to Howard. We got yours. Howard, you should have permissions now. I think I've already added you to some of the pull requests for reviewing. And by the way, this is an action item that all TAC voting members are expected to, but anybody else who's a TAC representative, even if you're not a voting representative, this is also an action item on you. So there are already a couple people who did. I mean, Jethro's been on there since I think the beginning, but anybody else who's a TAC representative, but a non-voting representative, meaning a representative from a general member, please send us your GitHub ID too. I just didn't put your name on here, so since there's a long list. So. Stephen, I think this one is now done because you did this in the outreach meeting, and I need to grab the slide there. So. The TAC white paper, Mike just talked about that, skipping that. A couple other ones have been marked as done from people reported on, so I'm just going to skip over those. The next two are also on the agenda, and then the last one I'm going to mark as done because in the notes that I put out and had the action items, I actually put this point into there. So this was Mike, and the bullet that I put into the mail that said, hey, the TAC white paper, there may be text in the copy graveyard. This came up last week on the call when Demetrios was there, but you weren't. And so this was just making sure that you and Brandon knew that the TAC said that was a suggestion. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's move on. I think that's all the action items that are not tracked via other slides or GitHub issues. So who would like to talk to this point? Seth or Stefano? I guess it's Stefano
first. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. So the Open Source Summit is happening this year. It's going to be virtual, as many of you know. We have decided to be a sponsor at the bronze level. Since we're Linux Foundation members, we get a 50% discount. What that entails is a few benefits. There's a spreadsheet there. That's probably the most important benefit we're getting, and that's the virtual booth. So for those of you who are new to virtual conferences, virtual booths are exactly what they sound like. It's an opportunity for folks to engage in a digital version of a booth where they can come look at some pamphlets or really any material we provide them, or they can chat with one of us who is quote unquote sitting in the booth. So that spreadsheet allows you to sign up for times. We'd like to have at least 2 people in the booth at any given time. Ben has done a great job in putting that spreadsheet together, and he can also answer any questions as he has done this sort of thing before for events for Red Hat. The dates that are available are the 29th of June through the 1st, 8:30 to 5:30. Important to call out that's CDT, Central Time Zone. So think virtual Austin. Let's see. I also called out we have 3 talks that have been accepted. So those are events you might want to show up to and show your support.
Are those CCC events or are they events by CCC members?
The latter. I think one was a CCC event and the other 2 were from members, correct?
Correct. Yes.
I think that's right. Okay, good.
So one, I think, is,
one of
can you
us
remind us what they are? I think one
Yeah.
is yours, Mike, one is Open Enclave, and one is Stephen Wally for the consortium. Is that right?
Correct.
That is correct.
Discount code for passes. Passes are only $50, but we do have discount codes and 6 free passes. So any of us who would like to attend should be able to. And then in terms of, like I said, with the booth, we can provide the documents, videos, presentations, whatever we'd like to provide them with links to, we can do that. There was some talk about a sort of door prize. I think the outreach team is going to handle that and decide if that's a good idea, and if so, what the door prize will be.
So I have a question. I have a question.
You go first.
When I go to that link, here is what I get.
Ah, wonderful.
I think I have the same.
I will take that offline and ping Ben to let him know he needs to open that up. I've taken an action item already.
Okay, great.
That was quick.
So you're not going to get many signups at this rate, is all I'm saying. So.
Very true. And I'll go ahead and make sure he opens that up to everybody.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so I don't know about other companies, but Red Hat certainly has virtual as sponsoring as therefore has a virtual booth as well, and NARCs will be appearing there. Now, I don't know how we want to balance appearing there and appearing on the CCC one, and I certainly don't feel that we should be, bombing the CCC booth because we could have other spaces, and we'll make sure that other people who are maybe don't have that opportunity can use it. But I think we should make sure we are all represented. So there's some interesting questions about how to do that.
That is a good point. I think it would be good too to know if we do have other booths like that set up, that the CCC booth should redirect to that. So we should have a link available for folks so that if they show up to our booth, they can see, oh, look, there's an NARCs booth as well. I should go look at that.
Hey, Mike,
Mike, is it an NARCs booth or is it a Red Hat in general booth and just NARCs is
It's a Red Hat it's Red Hat open source community booth.
Okay, so it's more than just NARCs.
It is more than just NARCs. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But I suspect we'll be one of the best represented of the because we have lots of materials. So
I was going to say, obviously, NARCs would be the best thing in the booth. Quick question, Mike.
Best represented. Okay, Carol, Steve.
Your experience trying to give demos, were you able to do virtual demos in the virtual booth at Red Hat Summit?
We didn't try. What we did was we had a session which went very badly, but that wasn't the fault. That was a problem with infrastructure. We did a demo there. Basically, what we would advise is, and I think they want the videos like now, is that you do videos. So we have a bunch of videos we'll be putting up, including sort of questions with NARCs contributors about where they use it. There's someone talking a lot. It's Dave. You've got.
I'm getting noise from Brandon. Brandon, are you there?
Sorry. It's
Brandon. Sorry about that. Yep.
Yeah. So you can do videos, and I think that's the easiest way of doing it. So watch this video and then talk to me in the chat. I think is probably quite a good way of doing it.
Super. Thank you.
Okay. I also just wanted to remind everybody who's present that this link you can't easily type, and so we're going to remind people where you can find these slides. You can find these slides in the groups.io section of the TAC meetings for today, and so you just navigate into the main group under TAC files and look for meetings today, and then you can get to these slides, and then you can find this link. So
except that the link won't work yet.
Yeah,
as we just discussed.
But there's a bunch of links in here, just reminding people that there is a way to navigate these, to get to these slides yourself. So at least anybody who has joined the TAC list, which I think, I don't know if everybody on here that the newcomers have, but you have to join the list first before you can click on the link. So.
And I've already sent an email to Ben to open that up, and it'll also be, that link will be available in the minutes.
Cool. Which will be in the same place as the slides. So.
Indeed.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the Open Source Summit? Okay, then I think we'll go on. All right, next topic, which can fill as much of the available time as we want. Then Ava, would you like to drive this? Do you want to share your screen so you can move up and down? How would you like to do this?
Sure. Give me just a minute to get that up and ready.
I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I know Giuseppe said he was going to be late because he had a conflict at the beginning of it, but he did insert his comments into the outreach white paper, is what he told me.
Almost got it. I am zooming from my Windows machine today, so everything's very slow.
Okay. So for those that are new, since we didn't introduce, Ava is a member of the Outreach Committee, and so Ava is presenting for TAC Review on behalf of the Outreach Committee.
So for those who haven't been here before or are new to this paper and our goals, this was presented to the TAC for review 2 weeks ago. Our goal was to have final feedback from the TAC today or yesterday, and then to be able to send it off to Linux Foundation for design and sort of the final proofing of it by the end of this week. I haven't had a ton of comments since the last TAC meeting. There's a few. Like I said, I haven't done a lot of work to incorporate those either, since I was hoping there'd be more review. So I'm not quite sure what to drive at this point, since we drove through this in the last TAC meeting. But Dave, I will very much follow your lead on what you'd like to see.
I got email from Giuseppe overnight. Can you verify that there's at least one comment from Giuseppe in here? Since
there's one.
Okay, great. So his stuff is in here. Okay. I guess I'm happy to talk through my comments, but I don't want to monopolize all the time for just for me. And so, are there others on the TAC that would have suggestions to how we drive this? So.
As I was ill for the last TAC meeting and then didn't pick up everything afterwards, I've not looked at this. It looks pretty good. Just looking through it pretty quickly, and because loads of us have put loads of work into this already. But I have to admit that I've not looked at it, and that is my bad, Ava. I'm very sorry.
Okay, I see at least one comment from a number of other TAC members. So thank you, Grant, and I see Shankaran in there, and Giuseppe, and so that's in the copy graveyard. So we don't need to review anything in the copy graveyard.
Yep, I scrolled past the graveyard. Yep, thanks.
So I would say, since I got lots of them, I want to make sure we cover anybody else's. So let's cover anybody's except for mine.
Okay.
Like that, it doesn't matter what order, right? So I saw a comment from Grant and Shankaran and so on. So because most of mine I put in suggested text.
I have one comment here from Stephanie.
But Stephanie's outreach, right?
Yes. Sorry.
Let's concentrate on the ones where people are actually present in the meeting here.
Okay.
Seth is not in the meeting. There's a
Yep. Right. That's right now. Thanks, Mike.
That's right. So I think against sounds combative. With is just another way of saying it. So
sure.
Again, that might just be
fine by me.
All right.
There's one from Giuseppe.
Yeah. Myself cannot. All right. I believe that this original text came from me, and this is the text that's basically the TAC authoritative for. So that means we can decide here. And so this was the point that, say, Mike and I have often made. It says, what homomorphic encryption cannot do, cannot ensure that it's done the correct operations, which is the code integrity point. Giuseppe asks, correct or pre-agreed by the involved parties?
You're right.
I think those terms are synonymous.
I think they are in this context. I can see where the question comes from, but you could say expected kind of covers both of those. I like correct though, because we're talking about
I do
proof.
Too. Anybody else have an opinion on this one? I kind of like the way it is, but because I guess I'm biased. I wrote it, but
you could put correct brackets expected.
I don't know that
it makes it harder to read.
But I think it's strong. I think it's strong as it is. It's a fair question from Giuseppe, but I think I'd keep it.
Anybody else on the TAC? Anybody else in the meeting have a dislike for correct? Okay. And sounds like our consensus is to keep it. Hearing no.
My thought on this is pre-agreed implies a multi-party operation.
Yeah.
Which is not implied by the overall statement.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I get it, but
yeah.
Let's keep it.
Yep.
On the table, which I don't seem to be able to edit, under code confidentiality, I'm not sure work is a helpful word, may require work. May not be default capability. I don't know.
Well, may require work. So I'm not trying to defend to defend the text or whatever. If we want to change the text, but I think that does cover cases like the hardware is capable, but you got to write a bunch of software to do it. So,
but it does imply, to my reading, that all of them can support it, given work.
No, the text, if you look at the first sentence of the paragraph above it, it talks about a typical TE implementation. The intent is not to say that the cells, at least below the bold ones,
fine.
are
Let's
actually
continue. That's fine.
common across them. In fact, it tries to say in the second one is, if for everything other than the bold ones, the answer could be different from what's in the table for any other one that you pick.
Fine. Okay.
At least that's the voiceover that I give when talking about the table so far, and that's what I tried to capture up above. And so the bold ones are definitional. The other ones are just, well, as an example.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's continue. I
But that's also why I put the table below the text. But
yeah.
All right, let's go on to another person's comment. As soon as you're ready, Ava. Shankaran. You want to say anything about your comment?
Yeah. So I think this section talks mostly about this application isolation approach. So do we need to cover the other VM-based isolation in this paper, or? So my main question is, so in VM-based isolation, mostly the operating system will come under the trusted party. So this diagram and pretty much both approaches covers the application-based isolation approach.
So I think the point maybe you're making is that, and I struggle with this as well in layer diagrams, is that there may be two operating systems. One is an app, and one is, i.e., it's in a VM, and the other is not. So this is the host operating system that's being talked about. And if I think we look at it like that, we might be okay. So what we're saying is the app is where the secure boundary is, and the app may include an operating system, etc., etc., etc. Is that your understanding, Dave, and other people?
Yes, and when I see in other diagrams that say, the IETF or global platform and things used, the way that they often disambiguate that is to take what's the left side on here and label it rich execution environment, and the right side trusted execution environment. And sometimes even the right side is blown up into more detail. So like even in the non-VM case, there can be an OS using the term loosely on the right. So in like Trust Zone, for example, from ARM, right, you might have something like Opti as the secure world OS or lightweight OS, in addition to the rich execution operating system, which might be, Linux or Windows or whatever else. So yeah, you can have an OS on the right, regardless of whether it's VM or not, in fact.
Oh, it's not an OS. It might be a management layer of some description.
You could have a unikernel as well, which is, this again.
There's a whole bunch of options, is what it comes down to.
Shankaran's question is, should there be detail in the outreach white paper or only in the TAC white paper?
I'm interpreting this a little bit differently. Is the word app representative of the variety of options that could be in that space? And I don't think it is. Upon seeing this discussion, I don't think app is the right phrase. I think, what do you all think about just changing that, those two words where the app is repeated twice to something else?
Can you highlight? I see only one of them right now.
I can't highlight. It's just it's actually a screenshot from elsewhere.
That's not where I'm looking at. I thought you were talking about someplace different, because those are apps that are not trusted world apps. If you look on the left text and right after the and how, there's a word applications ported to. The applications ported to is approach 1. If you were to say something about how code is, I'd say, because the word ported is kind of what I'm thinking about, because approach 2,
I see.
You might not need a word port, right? So applications ported is the wrong phrase.
I would like to know what host means. Does that mean host hardware, or host means nothing? I think in this context.
Yeah, I agree.
Picture. I'd like to see the words hypervisor change to host hypervisor and operating system change to host operating system. And of course, hypervisor can be part of the operating system layer depending on how you design that, but I don't care particularly enough about that.
But you're right. The host one on the bottom being underneath the CPU, that's confusing.
Yeah.
Maybe that box should be deleted. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, I think it shows the underpinning, but it doesn't really mean very much.
So
delete the bare metal.
Delete the image.
It's the It's just the bare metal, isn't it?
Oh, but we have CPU, which is kind of part of that as well, right?
Yeah, CPU wouldn't be a layer on top of that, which is the confusing part. So.
I would view this.
It's superfluous.
Yeah, I think it's superfluous.
Yeah. Okay. So
I would view host as the underlying platform. So that would be things like the BIOS, because BIOS in some sense does sit below CPU, especially if you're loading microcode into the BIOS.
That's true.
So, Grant, are you suggesting that the CPU and host boxes get combined and relabeled as like host platform, or what was the term that you used?
No, I would say instead of host, I would replace that with platform. Platform being the motherboard, voltage regulators, BIOS, all the things that do sit below the CPU.
But that includes the CPU though, right?
We typically view that as another layer below the CPU because the platform can assert domain over the CPU by affecting voltage by loading microcode from BIOS. And there are other CPUs in some sense on the platform below the main CPU.
And so you're saying there's two different layers that's there, and under that argument, I think the same might apply for Intel too, if you consider the microcode to be on top of
the picture we tend to draw is CPU/management engine at the bottom, BIOS/EFI next, firmware next, hypervisor next, bootloader, kernel, user space, middleware, and that's before you even do anything else. So there's so many ways of drawing it.
So how do we abstract this to a C-level audience?
The purpose of this TAC paper, sorry, the outreach paper, is not to go into such technical depth, but to make this approachable. Right. And I also want to point out that, you know, as we're all looking at this, the TAC's definition specifically does not say that encryption happens in the CPU or the main processor. So this graphic is quite problematic. I'm happy to remove it or replace it with something that is descriptive and approachable without being implementation specific, because there are many ways to implement it, as we all know. Or just leave it out entirely, because there may not be a good picture for all the possible ways.
Yeah, if you remove it, then that at least makes it easier to review. I don't know whether it makes it easier to understand. I mean, easier for the TAC review, right? But I don't know if it makes it easier for the audience to understand. But certainly if you remove it, then the only remaining concern that I have on that topic is the word porta that you have highlighted is the wrong word. But then the rest of the text I think would be fine as a generic text.
Does anyone have a graphic that they would like to put forward as a replacement for this?
I have multiple ones, none of which is a perfect replacement.
Okay. Would anyone like to put their hand up? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not a member, but NIST, let me get the document number, but NIST has one that they put together. I want to say, you know, I won't say the number, the 800 series number until I get the correct one, but they have a very generic model that's more intricate than what you have here, going down the full stack. And they genericized it across different platforms, and in their explanation they do state that it was done intentionally to cover some of the use cases you're talking about. So I'll look for it. I'll go back on mute. This is Kathleen Moriarty, and I'll put it in the chat if helpful.
I think this document might already reference, sorry, Ava, does this document already have a reference to a NIST document in it? I thought it might. I'm wondering if it's the same one, Kathleen.
It does. 0428 2020. I'm just going to open it and look myself right here.
So, Kathleen, the question is it this white paper that it's being referenced already, or is it one?
Yeah, so I'm looking up right now to see where I can find it. I use it in the course I teach on security architecture at Georgetown.
Also like to ask if anyone wants to volunteer to create a new graphic.
I think we're going to have all the same problems, and it'll spend. Yeah,
okay.
It's really tricky, but we're going to need some in the other paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the one linked in here already does have a couple graphics. talking about attestation and cloud service providers and server CPU kernel. Yeah, it's not quite the same.
We'll wait to
okay.
see if Kathleen has a different NIST white paper, if that's the one that I think of. So. But all right. If there's no volunteers, then it might be easiest to remove the graphic unless we can somehow come up with one that we agree on. That's generic enough, which is the problem. But there's a bunch of heterogeneity, and so it's hard to find one picture that doesn't have a problem.
In lieu of that, what additional changes should be made regarding utilization paradigms and ported?
And how applications, maybe how applications are, I don't know, made to run is generic. I'm trying to find a word that is agnostic between ported and installed in. So made to run in is all I can think of right off the top of my head. Maybe there's a better wording.
Facilitated to run.
Sure. Okay, I see Kathleen just posted in a.
That is a.
It's much more detailed, but.
So it may be more appropriate for the TAC white paper, but maybe there's something in it.
Kathleen, do you have a link to that document? Is it publicly available?
Oh, sorry. I took this on my phone so I could get other things that I needed attended to, and I was on my computer when I looked.
I'm just getting a link.
The course materials.
Oh, awesome. Thank you,
Brandon.
Brandon, bring it to it.
Okay, I'm going to drop it in here just for record keeping.
Figure 1, right?
Yeah.
Scrolling down. Oh, we don't want to put that in.
Oh, yeah.
It's lovely and interesting and exciting, but we don't want to put that in this white paper.
In this one, right. But it does have all the stuff you guys were talking about, so.
But it also doesn't seem to convey the...
It'd be the left half, right? But this is probably more tailored towards the TAC white papers audience.
Yeah.
Even then, it's too complex, I think. Let's.
Yeah.
Are we gonna say we're gonna take it out? Is that the plan?
Yeah.
I think so. Just because we have cases where they're not even on the main board, like in was it like the Mellanox example? There's cases where you have a lightweight OS on the right or not. There's how many different layers, whether there's a hypervisor or not a hypervisor. Yeah. Okay, so Ava, did you get the suggestion that we had on the applications reported phrase?
Yeah.
I think Mike's last one was, mine was made to run in, Mike's was facilitated to run in. I don't know if you have a better suggestion. At least, I guess the tax job is to make sure it's technically correct, and it's the outreach job to wordsmith it, right?
Yeah. Protected by the corresponding T, but no, that like the action is to take an existing application and enclavize it and make up words.
Ooh,
they can mean whatever we want.
TEEFI, but no, yeah.
Yeah.
But in approach 1, right, you potentially factor it into pieces. In approach 2, you have a way of installing it in there, essentially unmodified, as long as it meets the right requirements. I don't like that term. But
I know.
Technically, we get what you mean, but that's what I said. Made to run in is the closest I could think of was.
Yeah, but
facilitated to run in.
That's why I'm fine with Mike's wording too. But if you got it more layman speak, feel free. But
enabled to run in. Enabled to execute in the corresponding TE.
So in the first approach, the application may straddle both sides of the TE boundary.
Correct.
So even saying it runs in isn't entirely correct.
That's true. Or it may or may not be correct depending on the approach. Correct.
Yes. So How about facilitated by?
I don't like that because that implies that the application is running outside just using services provided by the TEE.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Okay.
So associated?
No, it's not strong enough. I mean,
You could say constructed using the TEE.
Oh, it's not about the construction either.
Yeah.
Enabled to use, enabled to.
Rather than focus on that, just flip the sentence around and just simply say, and how applications use the corresponding TEE, and then you get away from constructed or enabled or ported.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
Thank you. Very wise. Who was that?
That was Grant.
As Brandon.
Oh, Brandon, sorry.
Yeah, no, it wasn't me.
Simplicity wins. Thank you very much, Brandon.
Okay.
Was there any action to take on Shankaran's comment here?
You just did it.
Great.
Oh, sorry. No, never mind. You didn't.
Oh, okay.
Should we add a section explaining the differences between a VM-based approach?
No, I think now it makes much more clearer. I think the diagram was probably.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Thank you. Cool. Dave, more comments from you. Here's one from Shankaran. Shankaran, since you're here, is that a comment to insert additional words or to replace a sentence?
Insert additional words.
I'm sorry, your audio was very soft there.
Sorry, to insert additional word about mentioning that it actually validates the implicate code. Not exactly in that sense, probably we can replace the word.
Okay. So I'm reading that before you paste it. I'm reading your comment, Shankaran, as a replacement for some of the text in that sentence. My interpretation is you're talking about code integrity,
yeah,
and the text in the sentence about. Okay, maybe you should read it now because I think what Ava did was. Okay. When it says the key word is processing, right? Can ensure that the processing of that data. Now, if it would have said can ensure that the data is protected against tampering and compromise, then I would get your point. But it says the processing of that data. To me, the processing includes, as a layman's term, the code integrity point. But sounds like to you it doesn't. But I think the word processing to me was why I didn't catch, was why it seemed okay to me as is.
Okay.
But what do you think?
Yeah, I think, yeah, processing, we can take it that sense as well.
Because the phrase that you just pasted in, Ava, the "and can also validate the integrity," the "also" implies that ensuring that the processing is protected against tampering doesn't, because it's an "also," and so that's why. To me, the sentence is not necessary, but if others think that it is, then please speak up and explain what if anything you'd like to change in the word processing. But that was my interpretation of processing on here.
So, I mean, I have a bit of a problem with actually a bit before that, because using confidential computing, organizations can send data securely. Well, that's not what confidential computing is. It's the next bit that it does.
Right. Yeah, so the original wording there was can not only send data securely, because that's what we can already do. Can ensure. So this is kind of redundant. Maybe can now ensure that.
On Mike's point, one way to accomplish that would be to swap the order of the first two phrases. Something like, organizations can not only send stuff, but utilizing confidential computing can ensure. Also, I like it the way that you have it right now if you want to just do what you have. But in other words, omit the other one is fine too.
Yeah.
Mike, does that look better to you?
I'm just rereading it. Yeah, I like that. I think that's better.
Okay. So I still think that the "and can also validate" is redundant with the processing of that data. And that the word "also" before Shankaran's phrase implies that it is disjoint, which it isn't to my reading anyway.
Right. I think I can see both sides of that.
If you want to remove and just say that that the data, and remove processing of, and then I think it's fine. I mean, if you delete the 3 words processing of that and leave Shankaran's phrase, then I think that removes the redundancy. Does that read better and is that clear, Shankaran?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'm fine with that if others are okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think that works. And then the following sentence ties the paragraph back to the section it's in pretty well.
All right, so while you're on the screen, let me just cover my comment right now before you scroll down.
Oh, okay.
I have a question here that I actually don't feel, no, not that one. The next one is the one I was going to talk about. The also probably, because somebody might argue against that, because I'm actually on the fence on this one. As to whether we should say anything in here or not say anything. And the more I think about it, the less inclined that I am to actually do my comment here.
So the way
go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. So the way I tend to talk about that is that is the CIA, is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And I just tend to say that TEs are about addressing confidentiality and integrity. They are not about addressing availability.
So I guess the question that I'm begging here is, should we actually say that addressing availability, DOS is not within the scope of the threats it's trying to defend, or should we just leave that unstated? That's the real question I'm asking. Should we call that out or be silent on it is my question. And right now we're silent on it, and the more I think about it, the more I'm inclined to be silent on it, but I'm okay either way. But I wanted to ask us to make it be an explicit decision.
So if this paper is for laymen, I've had lots of laymen ask about DOS and have to be very explicit. So I would advise making a statement about it.
Okay, who is that speaking?
But I would say that this is talking to Garner, an industry analyst, and so they are kind of educated laymen. I guess the concept of CIA is quite clear to them. I'm okay either way, but I think because as a technology, you need to differentiate between different types of technology for dealing with data processing. I'm actually in favor of calling it out, saying that we do not do, the client server architecture doesn't deal with availability, and I'm okay with calling it out explicitly.
Okay. Anybody else? Let's say who spoke up before Yunsung?
Oh, that was Pushkar.
Pushkar, okay, thank you. I said somewhere in this white paper, because it's actually not clear to me, if we call it out, then where's the best place to do it? Because it's certainly not specific to the cloud provider use case, right?
No.
Maybe
it's the host, owner, or operator.
Yeah.
Or even beyond that in certain cases, I guess.
Maybe if we call it out, it'd be somewhere early in the document, maybe because up where we either define TEs or define confidential computing, maybe.
Well, we could put it in. We could put it in the table, frankly, and
or
it's
in
a
the
no
text,
from all of them.
It maybe is
all the text about yeah.
Yeah, maybe the text above it or something like that. Actually, I know. Scroll down, Ava. After that list of things, recoverability, attestability. I'm thinking it could be a sentence, not a bullet, but another paragraph sentence underneath that one, because it says it may also provide those, and then something about I don't know how to phrase it, but hardware differences do not protect against denial of service or other availability attacks, or I don't know if those are synonymous.
Infrastructure stroke operator.
whoever is Anonymous Leopard, thank you for suggesting text.
I see Anonymous Coyote. That's interesting.
It's a race.
Okay. Thank you for actually suggesting text in text form instead of verbal form. So,
okay, so the one in red that you're seeing in red is my contact. It's not showing me as me. Okay, yeah.
We can compare yours and Ava's. Yeah.
Maybe instead of are not protected, are not prevented by current hardware TEs.
Yes, that's right. That's a bad. Yeah. That's much better. Sorry, that means nothing. What I put. Thank you.
One of the things that I like.
Do you want to say?
Oh, go ahead.
Do you want to say are not in scope, or do you want to say are not protected?
Are not addressed. How about addressed?
I like that.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
And we always say hardware -based and not just hardware TEs, just for consistency.
Do we need to make a differentiation between obviously DOS that could happen on the various projects that support confidentiality and infrastructure stroke hardware ownership?
I'm not sure what you mean.
So,
well, I mean, you know, we're saying here that a DOS or DDoS attacks are not addressed by the current hardware-based TEs, right? But what about the supportive software? There is going to be some level of DOS prevention on the software level, right? For the particular sphere and scope of the various projects that are going to be supporting confidential compute.
So an attestation service, if provided via a cloud provider or such, one would presume it has DDoS protection because it is a service. However, that I don't think is part of the scope of a hardware TEE. It's really the scope of the cloud service provider. If I were, let's say, running a local attestation service on a smaller scale, that might not have any DDoS protection. So I don't think the DDoS protection is a quality of an attestation service, but rather a quality of running any large publicly available service.
Yeah, often when I have gotten asked this question in person by various parties, not as part of a CCC thing, but just in discussions in IETF or wherever else, I've said that the way that I put it verbally is, in general, DOS is not protected. Just because you're running a TEE, you're still susceptible to DOS, and often the rich execution environment, if it gets compromised, can DOS the TEE. But what all of the other things that are on the list above, all those other bullets, any attacks against those are either prevented in the first place or they're translated to DOS. In other words, if you try to do something, it ends up in a DOS rather than accomplishing code confidentiality or whatever else. So the TE's job is to either prevent it from happening at all or to convert it to DOS instead.
Mike's actually written something good to what I was getting to.
Someone added to it, not on me.
Okay, thanks, Liam. So are you happy with that text, Liam?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty happy with this as well.
Okay, cool. That addresses my comment. So
awesome. Okay.
That was one that was worth discussing, not a simple, arbitrary, not a simple, easy editorial thing.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and resolve these comments.
Actually, that's the second one. The first one was a separate comment.
They are lumped together. Thank you, Google Docs.
Yes. Okay, this is commenting on a specific phrase. What is that tied to? Can we find?
The interest committees.
Okay, gotcha.
Even the cloud provider can be removed from the trusted computing base such that so that only the hardware and the protected application itself are in the attack boundary. If you look up above in the paragraph before, there was something about those with physical access in the paragraph right before the one that was being commented on.
Right before. Okay.
It's still in that section. So somewhere in there, and I'm looking for somewhere there was something about physical. Oh, here it is. So it's the same paragraph. Okay. Next paragraph. I'm going to read it out loud and just highlight. When with a hardware-based T, protecting applications and data use becomes significantly more difficult for an unauthorized actor, even one with physical access to the hardware. Okay, so to gain access to the protected code and data, right? And so it says, if you think about, Mike, I'm going to refer back to your slide on the slide in the analyst briefing and the threat model stuff where we talked about like the electron microscope and things like that. If you have physical access to the hardware and enough time and resources, you might be able to do things. And this is saying the cloud provider has physical access to it. And if they have a microscope in a couple of years or whatever it is, then that's kind of what I'm asking about.
Well, I think it's fair to say that it can be removed from the trust boundary.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I think as it's written, that's correct.
Okay, I'm okay with leaving it this way. I just wanted to ask if there's any problems with this. So
I'm not saying that it is impossible.
That's true. Okay, you're right. I am fine with making no changes. I just wanted to ask if you want to say, yeah, we've discussed it.
If your comment was that this is redundant, I'm happy to delete this sentence.
No, it's not redundant. I think it's useful.
I think it's either useful as is or it can be removed from the set of implicitly trusted entities. I'm also fine with, but I think the conclusion from what I've heard so far is just resolve my comment.
Okay.
I have some unease with this statement.
Go ahead, Simon.
Which bit? The last one, even the cloud provider?
It says can be. It doesn't mean that it's always. Maybe there's some case it's not, but it can be.
If I wrote that statement, my lawyer would not let me
Okay.
On what grounds?
I have problems with the term significantly in whose eyes, right? I think in the first in the second clause of the first sentence, that's in whose eyes is it more difficult? You know, and then even the cloud provider can be removed from the trusted computing base.
Let me turn your phrase back at you. Can you imagine anyone for whom it would not be significantly more difficult?
Yes.
Name one.
I could go and give it to some of my guys in my labs.
Yeah, no, but still going to be significantly more difficult than
so
if you had it and just in a standard machine, right?
The point that I tried to make when I wrote this section is compared to today, and this is me speaking as an individual, not as someone who works at Microsoft Azure. So I don't know how the data centers there work. I can't speak for all of that process, but coming from, say, an OpenStack world or just I do hosting world, if I have root access on the host and there's a traditional hypervisor, or DOM0 on Xen, I can do things to the memory in that hypervisor. If I have IPMI access, I can DMA to memory through IPMI. If I plug in a USB, kit, there's things I can do in a traditional system which I could not do if that application was running in a TEE. And the point I was trying to make here is those traditional attack vectors that folks in many places think about how do we protect against these traditional attack vectors. Here you go. It is significantly harder. Those attack vectors are closed. I'm not saying that all attack vectors are closed. Certainly, I would understand a lawyer being uncomfortable with a phrase like that.
No, it doesn't say impossible at any point, and it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's enough, for me anyway, there's enough weasel words like significantly and can be to get us, to keep me out of lawyer jail, right? In other words, to keep
How
me off
about,
of the lawyer's complaint list, yeah.
Simon, how about increasingly?
It becomes increasingly difficult.
Increasingly more difficult?
That's just the opposite of oxymoron. Tautologist.
I'm going to reserve judgment on this paragraph. I think that's the only way. I have to go and consult with a few folks.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying we shouldn't change the text right now, but I think Ava did mention that the proposed deadline was like tomorrow, if it's possible to address all the comments by then. So that's, well, no, the next one, which was to send it off to, you know, the editing step. What is the next step, Ava, after this?
The next step is to send it to LF editing, yes.
Okay.
And my goal for that was tomorrow, the latest end of this week, because it'd be great if we publish this before the Open Source Summit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or have it in the booth materials.
Is there going to be an LF legal review of this? How do we resolve legal issues?
So just really quickly, there will be no LF legal review of this. We are self-contained. We have a legal subcommittee, which is our board members with their counsel.
Okay.
So if you feel there's something here that you are so uncomfortable with, then you should be raising this to your Intel board member with Intel counsel.
Sure.
I will add a step to this process to go through legal review that had not been requested before, but it sounds like it's being requested now.
Well, let's see if we can find a way for it not to be needed.
Okay.
Well, hang on a second, guys. This then becomes a point of principle, right? Writing something and not getting a legal review. I mean, that's not how we're trained to do at Intel, right? I'm uncomfortable with saying we would just write something and as a founder member of the organization, that we would be signing up to something without a legal review.
Okay, so
I'm very uncomfortable with that.
Okay, fine. I'm just asking whether it's possible. And I think the point about legal review is, who's it protecting? Is it protecting the CCC? Is it protecting the members of the CCC? Is it protecting the LF? If we ask the LF to do a legal review, they are doing it for probably the LF, possibly the CCC. If we are worried as specific members about words in the document, then we should get our own legal folks to look at it. And I think that's entirely appropriate as well, of course. I'm not trying to say we shouldn't do it. I'm just trying to see if because there is a process cost to it, how we need to look at it.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, Simon. The LF is if we were to ask the LF to do a legal review of this document, they will push it back on us.
I don't mind. I think what I'm worried about, particularly, right, is as a board member, would this document represent our view, right? And I don't think if I wrote this, I would get it past my legal review. And now that's a board issue. What happens if a board level member company can't sign up to the white paper?
Can we go back to the words in thing? Where is it? I've lost it. Maybe search on significantly if we're not.
It's under public cloud use cases.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, second paragraph. Yeah.
So I can live with significantly. I think the final sentence, even the cloud provider, can be removed from the trusted computer base. I would accept that is a desire. Whether that is fully achieved, I think is That's a definitive statement. I wouldn't be allowed to make that.
That's really, and in fact, what I was going to suggest would address possibly both of those points, even though significantly. We could say something which is more in line with what we say in the threat model in the slides we use. Something like aims to make it significantly more difficult, aims to remove the cloud provider.
Yes, my lawyer would love that.
Yeah, I thought they might.
So,
I'm trying to help here. I'm trying to help.
So I don't mind any change to the sentence that Ava is highlighting. I don't know why aims to is necessary in the first sentence, though. I think in the sentence about even can be removed from the trusted community base, perfectly comfortable in making such a change to that one. I still think that they become significantly more difficult is still true for the reasons you talked about before.
That's fine. If Simon doesn't, well, not just Simon. If no one has a problem with that, with the existing text, then let's leave it. But
Simon just said he could live with. Yeah, Simon just said he could.
I think we can live with because it's a modifying term, right? It's not a definitive statement, but certainly that last clause is a definitive statement. And
so how is that one, Simon? Sorry, typo remote should be removed. Okay. How does that look, Simon?
Yes.
I've got better. I think I've got better if I could just find where it is in the document that I've got in front of me. Aims to.
It certainly is a weaker statement.
Well, but that's what Simon was looking for, is a weaker statement that lawyers would not object to. I watching what Mike is doing.
And I will also send a note to my board member.
I like the Ava's original more than I like Mike's suggestion. Sorry, Mike.
That's fine. Again, it's just suggestions here. That's what it's all about.
I was speaking for myself as an individual. I liked what Ava had in there. If you
I sort of agree with Mike on this, though, because if we say confidential computing aims to remove the, to aims, then that actually means it's a main point. But if we put allow in there, it allows the option
about capability.
We're not certainly saying.
And I know that in some use cases you want the cloud provider to be part of the TCB. Now, NARC doesn't generally do that, but there are absolutely sensible use cases where you do.
So, looking at the various projects in this space, even outside of the consortium, we look at the promise of AWS Nitro, or the work going on for a silo or NRX. In none of these am I aware of any of the cloud providers saying, we are part of your trusted computing base? The whole
I'm aware of
course,
some
in
that is the case.
So, they're part of the TCP,
for instance,
right?
The IBM Data Shield has at least one mode where I think that is possible.
Sorry, Jethro, can you repeat?
Yeah, sorry. I was saying, or it sounded like Ava was saying that AWS Nitro doesn't have Amazon in the TCP. I don't see how that's going to be possible.
That's, maybe I misunderstood the various publications they've put out about it.
Well, as I said, I am aware of at least one use case within, I think, IBM Cloud, and there's probably other ones I can't talk about except under NDA, where this is it's possible.
So for IBM Cloud Data Shield, well, I don't know. I don't want to get too into details, but
I think it's fine. I think there are times when actually the cloud provider, if they're providing, they're trying to provide you with a service, then they may want to be in. So let's allow.
So aims to allow the removal of even the cloud provider from the TCB, so only the hardware and application itself would be within. I also changed R to would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy with that.
I can live with it. Yep.
Okay.
Simon, is that sufficient to forego an additional step for a legal review, or do you still think that you'd want to do a legal review?
You should always do a legal review.
You've been well trained, Simon.
Okay. Well, I did add at the beginning of this to our timeline a legal review. So if the TAC as a whole, and maybe one person's desire may be enough to have a legal review, then Dave, I think I would let you drive that, since I am not a part of, or Stephen, maybe you, somebody that is not me would have to drive that.
It has to come from the governing
So,
board, because the governing board is a subcommittee. Because the legal committee is part of as a subcommittee of the governing board.
That's what I was going to say. But I guess, what is the approval process for the Outreach's white paper? Does the Outreach get to put out a white paper without the governing board having to vote on it? Or is the procedure that the governing board needs to have an email vote to approve the white paper? That's a process question to Stephen.
So there is no process here. I would encourage us not to create such a process where the governing board is approving everything that has been said. What I would observe is this specific group of folks. The TAC has had some strong discussions over months now, where we collectively arrived at a series of things that we have presented to press and analysts. And we stuck to that as something that, the outreach committee helped shape it, but the TAC provided the content that we then provided to Gartner analysts and Forrester analysts and such. I respect Simon's concern here, but this feels, and absolutely respect your desire to raise it, but I've almost got to push this back to Intel, not just you, Simon, but if this is a deep concern for you, then raise it with your council, raise it with your board member, and let's have the discussion. But I don't want to put an approval process in place every time outreach or the TAC thinks they need to have an opinion, because up until now we haven't needed one. I am not saying that, Simon, if your spidey sense is going off right now that you don't think Intel legal or the Intel board member is going to be comfortable with what's being said here, you should raise it, but I don't think we need a process. Does that make sense, folks?
Yep.
I think in previous meetings, right, Stephen, you've mentioned the term minimum viable process, right?
That's, I still live by
that
those words.
as an ongoing thread from you, so theme. But yeah, I don't want to insert the TAC into this question, because it's a question for the governing board about an outreach white paper, right? We're just reviewers. And so I don't think there's any TAC approval of a request to the governing board per se. I think that's directly between outreach and the governing board.
And individual members.
All I'm saying is I don't think it's my job as TAC chair to call for a vote or anything in there. I'm trying to foist that off onto individual members or the governing board, and not have a TAC consensus or something like that on whether a legal review is needed. I don't think that's our place. So that's the job of other parts of the city.
Yeah, this is not a place that we want to build process right now, folks. It does come back to that kind of minimum viable governance that we've done an amazing set of things as a collaboration of partners over the last 9-10 months. We should keep moving with that. If a piece of content as well formed and well reviewed as this one is starting to meet a new bar, then let's test other ways to find out what that bar looks like. Like I said, I completely understand, Simon, that individuals with their individual corporate cultures and backgrounds will have different lines. If you've got real concerns, I completely respect. You should get those concerns, voiced. Let's not put a process in here. Let's go shape those. Let's go explore that discussion first.
Just quickly, what in this area, and something that might help or assist. I'm no legal expert, but basically, do we have a disclaimer written up by a legal front that basically states that the text and documentation that's present in these documents, although may be contributed, may not be the viewpoint of the companies associated?
That is a fantastic. That's the sort of thing I tend to come up with. Weasley
Yes,
words like that.
Liam,
I love the
thank
fact that
you.
someone else is doing it.
I will go deal with that at the board level.
It's the sandbox we all deal with because we're confidential companies, and when we're in the open source area like this, usually we have to go off and get agreement on a legal statement by all the parties, and that will cover all the documents. And then that's a disclaimer pushed into the document.
Thanks ever so much, Liam. That's a fabulous suggestion. Stefano, if you could put an action on me to deal with this at the board level with our legal subcommittee.
Copyright, 2020 CCC. The views expressed in this document do not necessarily reflect the views of every individual member.
Yeah.
So I would say if that's a fantastic idea, this document doesn't get published until that disclaimer is agreed.
I understand your concern, and I will do this with great alacrity.
So I'm wondering if that can be done in parallel with the LF editing pass, as opposed to waiting to send it to the step.
Great alacrity. I will have this.
It will be alacritous.
Because I think what Simon is saying is he would like that to be in there before it shows up at the SS booth.
You go and look up what alacrity means. I don't often get flummoxed by words like that.
My day is complete. Indeed, my week. Now
I'm adding this to my vocab. This is a great word.
It's a very good word.
Okay, we'll see if he finds a way to use that later in the meeting. All right. All right.
Stephen, I've added a single line at the very end after the further reading links. Please insert the legal disclaimer once you have it alacritously. I do think we can send this to LF copy editing because there will be a round of, they'll do some editing and then we'll proofread it. Or a couple of us will look at it at least. And, the legal disclaimer could come in the second round of that.
Mike is attempting to address my comment. Yep. So
I am fine with that.
Mike, you need to delete the letter N, so it's A like to like instead of N like. Okay. All right. All right, let's go on to other tech stuff. It seems like we were happy enough with where we ended up in the text on the last one. So, okay. So
yeah,
we
need
is the
to
point on the
avoid
word enclave. Let's not introduce the word enclave down. I think it did appear in one or two places, but those were in different places. There was already other suggestions for, so it may appear 0 times now, other than this one sentence, or maybe it does appear. But I guess my suggestion is to avoid introducing the term enclaves, and yes, that's fine. And I think you don't actually need the apostrophe there. And I think that there's this long debate on various grammar sites as to whether you need an apostrophe there or not, but the normal consensus is no. By normal, I mean that most of them. Okay.
No one normal here.
Confidential virtual machines, that's also a new term. We don't want to introduce a new term in the conclusion. Yeah.
You want a term that maps to whatever the term was in approach 2.
Yeah.
Or because there's an or that was in that sentence, right? And either having it not have 2 different phrases in the conclusion, just combine them more like the text that we did up above when we were earlier in the call. Because now it says ranging from TEs where developers can place their most sensitive code. Yeah. Now that you've changed enclaves to TEEs, I think that there's not two different places, because the TEs where developers can place their most sensitive data in code actually applies to both approaches. So in other words, the rename from enclaves to TEEs, previously the ranging from enclaves, enclaves was specifically the term that was used in approach 1. And now that that's changed to TEEs, then the first part is no longer talking about approach 1. You see what I'm saying? Ranging from let's see, because I understand this is trying to summarize in one sentence the whole approach 1 versus approach 2 discussion above.
Yes.
So ranging from you need a phrase similar to approach 1. That might be, you know, porting applications, or porting, it means porting portions of applications to run on a TEE, right? That's the concept of the first part is supposed to be. And I'm talking about the part not where Ava's editing, but the part that starts ranging from. Ranging from I'd want to look back in approach 1 to see if there's a phrase that can be stolen from that section. Ranging from partitioning the application's code, the very first sentence, right? Possibly grab the phrase partitioning the application's code into trusted and untrusted components. From partitioning until the period. And use that phrase. Nice.
I'm thinking of where that fits, and I'm not sure, Dave.
Copy those and I'll show you. So just copy, just grab in your buffer, yep, into the end of the sentence. Okay, copy, and now go back down into the conclusion. And I'm gonna, and so where it says, where's the word ranging? Okay, you see, no, ranging, replace the text. So in suggestion, replace the text that starts from the word TEEs until right before the comma. Yeah, so it'd be replacing that phrase right there with that phrase, and then where it says their applications, just change their applications to the applications. Yeah, okay, so that's my suggestion here. Let's read that. Put a word. Feel free to wordsmith from there, but that was my suggestion.
I'm wondering whether actually this bit, which I'm trying to highlight, I know you can't see what I'm highlighting.
Yeah. You have to.
Develop different approaches for content by making trade-offs around speed size.
Ava, I would insert a comma after the word components in the third line.
Yes, agreed. That makes a lot of help.
In between components and two, insert comma. Yeah, there we go. That's for readability. Yeah.
I think that now makes sense. I was struggling without that, and I came to exactly the same conclusion.
Yep, I like it. Thank you all.
Okay.
Hang on a second. Well, TCB size is not the only area where we've made trade-offs, right?
Well, hence, for example.
Yeah. What Mike said.
Screen is moving around too fast, so yeah.
Around TCB size, for example, before the comma, I think is what Mike was suggesting.
Or
after trade-offs, add in, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I had that in, it got removed. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Great. Dave, do you want to continue on? There's a couple other comments in here, or do you want to move
let's
on
go
to other?
Grant has a comment right there on the screen. Let's cover that. Grant?
Hey, yeah, it's just a simple comment. Let me just bring it up here. It was just a question for when we're talking about use cases, would it be worthwhile to also talk about when physical security is not guaranteed, confidential computing helps to mitigate those issues.
Aims to help mitigate those issues.
So you can argue that the point of sale devices. You can argue that the point of sale device is an example in there. If you think about, the self-checkout sections in a grocery store, for example, is a case where it's not locked away, and that is a point of sale device. And so there is a section that does talk about that, whether you want to make any changes to it. I think it's not absent in the next section. I mean, the one that's
no, it was simply a matter of when we're making the argument, and it may be expressed in other places in the document. I mean, I'm of the inclination that if we can repeat the message in a few places, it makes a stronger impact. But I don't. This is not a strong comment on my part. This is a thought of what could be done to make the argument stronger.
So if you have suggested text, please feel free. Otherwise, the window is closing real soon now.
I will put some suggested text in today.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Grant.
Is Giuseppe on the call yet? Check. Is Giuseppe here? I do not see Giuseppe here yet, so.
Okay.
Any other comments that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, we
I mean, blockchain is mentioned. I just saw it go past.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Multi-way computing, such as blockchain, right there. So.
I think, Kathleen, did you have a question on the multi-party computing section?
I did. I just sent it to you because I didn't know if you'd want it on the call, but
yeah, I don't mind. Please.
In our conversation, when you were describing multi-party computation for the use case for confidential computing consortium, you had said that within the TEE, it would execute while not encrypted. And the text within the document reads as if it executes while encrypted. So I just wanted to clarify the use case describing MPC.
No, we have it up on the screen. Is the word encrypted somewhere in this section? That's what I'm looking for.
How it reads as though it's encrypted. So let's see. Protected against tampering controls, including insider threats.
Oh, second paragraph from the bottom, last sentence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I guess Kathleen is asking, is this correct for when it's running in TEE? Is the data still encrypted inside the TEE? And I'd responded to Kathleen saying, I don't know multi-party computation. If this was homomorphic encryption, the answer would be yes. But otherwise, I don't know. And so I wanted to throw that out to the rest of you guys. Is that
multi-party computation has a variety of mechanisms. I couldn't speak to all of them.
Some of the ones I'm aware of.
Go ahead.
Data is protected by the TE boundary, but I can't say that it is still encrypted within the TE.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
We're also careful not to say that encryption is the way you protect confidentiality in all cases.
Right.
So Kathleen, did you want to say more? I think the question is the word encrypted the wrong word here in this text, right?
Yeah, so with multi-party computation, what you can do is, just to really state it very simply, you can do things like split keying and make sure that your keys are never joined. You can decrypt part of the data with one key and then the rest with another key. So that's kind of when we had our conversation, I was envisioning that, which is what raised the question.
Yeah. Okay, great. I see Ava's made a change there. I would delete by the TEE, and I say that only because this is talking about while stored and while it is transferred, and that is not entirely under the TEE, right? It's T plus other components working together, so that's why.
And there are use cases of MPC working well in databases where the data does stay encrypted and you can request transactions, and it's similar to what homomorphic encryption does in terms of solving the millionaire's problem. And you can tell I'm a mom.
You're doing a great job, Kathleen. I'll give you so many marks. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
Okay, I think that was a good change.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
And Giuseppe, I think should we resolve this one, as we did mention blockchain at the beginning of the section?
Since Giuseppe's not here, I would say yes, unless Giuseppe wants to.
The bit doesn't say that blockchain can be helped. It just says that blockchain has a problem.
Ah, okay. He's saying, do we want to say how blockchain can benefit from using TEEs?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Does this, I guess this paragraph implies, if one reads it that way, a global data sharing playing field might be blockchain, but it doesn't say that directly. We want to. I could imagine right here, such as, emerging blockchain technologies.
Such as those, the technologies mentioned above, including the technologies mentioned above.
Like such as.
Yep. There we are. Then I think we've dealt with it.
Great.
Okay. Sure.
Cool. Awesome.
Checking the time here. Okay, let's see. Is there other comments that we have not talked about yet, even if they're mine?
Even if they're yours.
Well, yeah, now you guys can pick out my wording and reject them, yeah.
So there's anything in the non-copy graveyard bit, because we don't want to be looking at that, that's right.
My screen just froze. Is Ava still scrolling?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, there it goes. It's back.
Yeah,
There's a couple by Grant. Have we addressed those?
Yeah, we addressed the first. I just threw some suggested text in there. If you want to go back and
let's go
chat
to
about
that.
it more.
Suggested text, okay.
Grant, where would you insert that?
I was just thinking about that, and I was considering between those two paragraphs, but I don't know if that flows very well.
I think it's okay, but I would wordsmith Grant's text a little bit. At the beginning, instead of saying edge and IoT use cases, because that's the section, I would just say some use cases, because it's not even all edge and IoT use cases.
Yeah.
So these would be wrong. So some use cases. Some of these is okay. Yeah, some use cases.
And then we can drop the often have, just some use cases have the outage challenge.
Yeah, agree.
Which reads better, I think.
Yep. And so now we've got.
And maybe drop for the device, that first for the device. Limited physical security. Confidential community technology can be used to mitigate attacks which depend on physical access to the device.
I think limited physical security by itself is a little too vague. And so I'm looking for a way to make it be more concrete. Because what you mean is, anybody can walk up to the device, right? That's kind of what you mean. They can put their hands on it themselves. And so how do we say that versus some other reading of limited physical security?
The challenge is the inability to secure the device, or the device's accessibility to untrusted people.
Yeah, I like phrasing it something like
vulnerability
that.
to physical attacks.
So, some use cases have the added challenge of being publicly, the hardware being publicly accessible or something like that.
Yeah, I like, was it Mike or so before there was also someone said?
I said it was me, yeah.
Yeah, I think I like vulnerable to physical attacks. of
How
being
about
vulnerable.
increased vulnerability?
Yeah.
Oh, just did something by accident.
Well,
Or
I think
even
it's still kind of skirting the issue because with it's increased vulnerability because it's actually accessible to other people besides the trusted people, right? Which is
Yeah, that's
kind of
fine.
the
Yeah.
It's
point.
not just some use cases, but you know, the entire purpose of some types of devices is to be out in open places.
Yeah.
It's not ancillary, it is the core purpose.
Of some devices, not all IoT use cases.
Right.
Yeah. Well, once you've caveated with some use cases, then yes.
Because of the, no, I'm not sure about need for some devices. Public accessibility. It's not even necessarily public, isn't it?
public. I mean, it's, I'm not too concerned about the wording myself. Public might give the connotation of that's the only kind of access that we're worried about, when it may not be fully public.
Yeah, so I've put protection from unauthorized because of
Yeah.
not protection.
I find that hard to read. Your point is that it is accessible by untrusted personnel or untrusted entities or something like that.
Yeah.
Insert the word.
Some use cases, comma by design, comma are accessible, are physically accessible to untrusted parties.
Yes, that's a
I've
good way to
lost
phrase
track.
it.
Put that in.
What Ava said. I'll wait until it settles down. Okay. You need to make a marginal wording change because it's not the use cases that are accessible, it's the devices that are accessible under those use cases. You can say in some use cases. Okay, sure. I like what you just did.
Yeah, some devices I think is sufficient. From context, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Can we make the second sentence less definitive?
We could go back to using aims.
Insert the word help.
Mitigate some attacks.
Can be used to mitigate some attacks, or aims to make attacks more difficult.
Can be used to help mitigate.
Confidential computing will not remove all physical attacks from
right.
I won't be delivering technology that does that.
Some attacks.
Oh, come on.
Second, I'm going to throw up my suggestion again because I like it. I can live with what's on there, but instead of to mitigate some attacks, my preference is to help mitigate attacks.
Yeah,
I'm happy with
that.
Okay, I like it now.
Okay.
I spend way too much time with my lawyers, can't you?
Often in legal reviews of things, inserting the word help is sufficient to make lawyers be happier.
Help and aim, they're great
The word help is the get out of legal jail free card that I have learned over the years. So.
Okay. Oh, my screen is slowing down, but I think we've reached just about all.
Okay, so in the I would also say that high profile attacks. Let's look at that comment here.
Right, this is where you had put in a couple links. We were going to add references to well-known attack cases.
Yeah, let me highlight for the rest of the TAC what the key point is here, okay? If you think about the table, you don't have to scroll, right? In the table, we said the 3 key attributes are data confidentiality, code integrity, and data integrity, right? And so far, this paragraph talks about data confidentiality and data integrity, well, data confidentiality primarily, but it doesn't mention anything about attacks against the integrity portion. And the theoretical question is the term confidential computing, as opposed to the term TEE, which we said has those 3, is the term confidential computing also include all 3 components? Or is confidential computing only the data confidentiality aspect of TEEs? If you believe that confidential computing as a term applies to all cases of protecting data in use, not just protecting data in use from confidentiality attacks, but protecting data in use, right? That was our agreed on definition. So my point was this paragraph talks about only about protecting data in use against confidentiality attacks. And it's missing the point about protecting data in use against integrity attacks. And that's where I was suggesting putting in these things here to address that point. So I was looking to add a sentence after the industry witnessed several high-profile memory scraping and CPU side channel attacks, right? Those attacks are attacks against data confidentiality, right? But if we're talking about protecting data in use against those three things, then we should add another sentence right after this one. You can say something like, the industry also witnessed several high-profile, code integrity attacks, such as Triton and the Ukraine power grid attack. Period.
Okay, so if we're going to do that, the problem is it feels like the third dimension is out of scope because you've got a new heading, security risk from protected data in use. The third dimension is in the states of data, and therefore
the third dimension is data in use, right? Attackers have shifted.
Yeah. I know, but it's introduced in the not as. Sorry, I've been writing code again. It feels like it's out of scope because it's not in the same heading block, basically.
I didn't understand what you mean.
Okay, go up, please. Stop. The third dimension is introduced in the paragraph here, right?
Correct. So
and weakly so, I think, because we don't. It's the only time it's referred to as a dimension. It's a state. You know, the other two aren't referred to as dimensions, right? So with a third dimension, we can't have a third dimension when there's been no first or second dimensions.
Okay, so your point is the word dimension should be changed to the word state.
I think it needs to be.
Okay, so Ava, in the last sentence above the infographic. Yep, right there, the third state.
We need to,
because the section
because it says data exists in three states. Yes,
and the section is called states of data. So
yeah,
yes.
Okay, so let's do that, and I think then I'm probably okay because we now have. It seems to be in scope.
Okay, and then similarly, the highlighted text at the bottom of your screen, the word dimension is there. The third state. Yes.
Yeah, because I think that's, I'm happy.
Okay, so again, I'm suggesting adding a sentence right after the word state, and I could type it or I could just say it out loud and you can work.
Go for it. If you'd like to type it, that might be faster.
The industry also witnessed, I'm not typing right now, if you want to type. The industry also witnessed several high-profile attacks against code integrity, such as Triton and the Ukraine power grid attack, period. And those could
need references. You need references to those.
Right, and that's what I pasted into my comment was the actual links.
Oh, okay.
Yep, those are the links, yep. And those are basically wired stories, which are meant for a general technical.
Where'd it go? Okay. Triton.
Both of those, what happened is code got replaced with, malware, which a TEE would have protected because you can't just replace code in a TEE. Yeah.
Would the word Triton be replaced with the Triton attack? Or is it sufficiently known?
No, I think you're right. The Triton attack.
Okay.
Such as the. Yeah.
Great.
Yep, I'm happy. Now, I would want to make sure, because I typed in this, the word code integrity, I said that out loud, but I don't know if this is the first use of code integrity. If this is the first use of the word code integrity, maybe we need a layman's term here because it's not defined until later in the document.
Okay, so paragraph up. Protecting data and code in use is the new frontier. Last sentence, last word, last line.
So the
Except that we've talked about data
grid,
specifically above.
It doesn't
And
fit into
the-
that paragraph, Mike, because that paragraph is the three
Yeah.
states of data.
Yeah, but
as well.
we're right at the beginning of the document, so we have nowhere else to put it. It's the earliest
Yeah.
we can put it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we are including this graphic.
Correct.
Right, code integrity. So.
Yeah, because when we say protecting data in use, I think it's we're trying to say that protecting data in use also requires protecting the code from integrity attacks.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to say. So I think it's okay what Mike said. So.
Okay.
Oh, I don't like it, but okay.
Actually, well, don't move. I'm going to read the sentence that starts with cryptography is now commonly deployed. That's because it's talking about cryptography. Never mind. But yeah, protecting data and code in use.
Well, so we define confidential computing as protecting data in use.
Right.
Not data in code. We had this discussion at
Maybe
the
put. What about where the and code is? What if you put and code in parentheses?
Now, I'm actually not thrilled at the extensive use of parentheticals already in this paragraph. Like, it's like we have to explain everything in parentheticals. If we're doing that, it means we're not being clear enough in our wording.
Okay,
so I
time
think,
check.
I think putting. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
I'm just doing a meta question here. We have about 9 minutes left in the call. Ava, do you have a preference as to how we use the last 9 minutes? Because you also wanted to chat about chat topic. Are you okay with pushing that off the next meeting?
I'm okay with that, but I'd like to take 1 minute just to ask folks to go look at it and add input.
Look at what, please? I didn't hear the.
The ongoing discussion we'd had, I don't know, a month or 3 ago regarding having a chat system, something like Slack, but not Slack, that might exist across the CCC, not as a mandate all projects must use, but rather that the CCC itself would have one. And turns out that some of the projects also have some. NRX, I believe, has adopted Rocket. Open Enclave is adopting Matrix. And we've collectively put together a spreadsheet comparing all of these. And if folks have other preferences like Jabber or XMPP-based systems or whatever, by all means, add columns, add rows, and let's talk about it more later.
Okay, is there some place to point people to review right now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I will drop a link in the Zoom.
Okay, great. And then Stefano, if you can just copy that into the minutes then.
Shall I stop sharing my screen and give it back to you, Dave?
I just wanted to know whether you wanted to reserve it a time or I just let the discussion on this text here flow right up until the hour was what I was asking.
I don't think I need to reserve time to discuss that, but I will
then let's
just stop sharing so that I can tab out and share the link.
Or you can do it after the call. That's okay.
I have emailed it out to the TAC list already.
Okay, as long as it was already sent to TAC list, that was my question. I know it was emailed to me, but if it was emailed to the TAC list, that's fine. So
at about 2.5 hours or 1.5 hours ago.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so then let's try to see if we can finish up things so that we don't have to have any. My goal is to try to minimize additional discussion that needs to happen over email or something on this document so that we can help to meet the copy edit deadline. So let's come back to this paragraph now, and I'm happy with letting this run until we run out of time. So if we finish before then, great. And so we were talking about the protecting data and code and use part between the hyphens there.
I say drop the and code piece because it just sort of like sticks out like a sore thumb at this point.
It does. I don't like it either.
I agree. Let's introduce it only in the next section. Yeah, let's introduce only in the next section. Security risk for unprotected data in use. So I think let's introduce it in this section here, which we kind of do against code integrity. But I'm wondering, the question that I ask is, if this is the first use of the term code integrity, then maybe we need a more layman's phrase there because we only define code integrity later. So maybe several profile attacks where involving malware injection. How about that? attacks involving malware injection instead of against code integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But by the way, you also have 2 sentences that have the industry witnessed as their opening phrases.
That's why the word also is in there. If you want to trim that somehow, maybe we also
Saw,
witnessed,
also saw, the industry also saw.
or combine them into also saw. Okay.
Yeah.
Not including, because those are 2 different things, as well as, Ava.
Yes. That's better.
Yeah.
And Seth had added a 3rd link regarding memory scraping. Do we want to include that somewhere?
Well,
I've got to drop, I'm afraid, folks. It's been a really good one, really productive. Thank you so much.
Right. Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Don't we have a reference to memory scraping?
Nope, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, so just.
Oh, I could just link it.
Yeah.
Right there.
There, and he would say, such as the target attack, and then you can link target attack, which is what his link is to.
Okay.
So just like we say, such as the Triton attack. Or the target breach, I think is the word that Seth used. Okay, cool.
Great. Stephanie had a comment on the question, or on the word industry. The tech industry, the world. I mean,
I'm okay with it as is. That was an outreach comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Was there any other comments that we have not looked at that are from TAC members, whether it's myself or anybody else? That's all the ones that I remember, but
I think that's it.
okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
Awesome.
Then,
Thank you all.
I guess you're welcome to stop sharing, and I will share and wrap up in the last 3 minutes here. Okay, let me know, is my screen back on screen now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So TAC white paper, we're deferring to the next meeting. The next sections, these are ones that we're not going to talk about right now, but I did want to use this chance to highlight that there are a number of pull requests. There's at least 3 of them that are currently in the time bomb state. And so if, as a reminder of our process here, the time bomb label means that there's already been at least 1 approval, and it's due to be merged unless somebody objects after a timeout. That's what we mean there. And so for each of these, there's been at least 1 approval, which is when I add the time bomb label as soon as I see the first approval. At least that's what I did for these. And waiting for it, and that they'll be merged as soon as there's a second approval with no approver with no objections, or that sufficient time has passed after, let's say a week. So that's what's going on. So I just want to call this to your attention. I've added everybody's GitHub IDs. If yours is missing, maybe it still needs to be added. But that's the goal. Everybody who sends me a GitHub ID that's a TAC representative gets added to there. And this is just a reminder to go and review these at your leisure. So with that, is there any other business before we close the call? And if not, then I'd like to thank everybody for their participation in the progress that we made on the TAC, on the outreach white paper. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Good luck.
And thanks to people who were here for the first time. Appreciate your feedback, and you're always welcome. So, I know Mark dropped off right before I said that.
I'm still here. I haven't quite left yet.
Okay, great. So thanks.
Have a good day.
All right, bye everyone.
Thanks all.
Thanks
Bye.
all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.